and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Two Count. It is your boy Charlie. I'm here with my boy Dave, and it has been quite an incredible week in professional wrestling news. It is, Dave, right? There's been one company that continues to rise and rise and rise, and another company that continues to fall. It's hard to say that WWE would ever really fall. The company is worth a gajillion dollars. I really an overestimate. So they're not really falling. But in terms of falling, I want to talk about Dean Ambrose. Or should I say Jonathan Good? Should I say Jon Moxley? Ambrose has been the centerpiece of WWE, or a centerpiece of WWE programming for quite some time. Reigns, Rollins, and Shield. Reigns, Rollins, and Roman were the future of WWE. When the Shield broke out, those were their guys. Those were the guys they were going to build the company around. Each of them is a Grand Slam champion within their first 5 years of the company, which is completely unheard of when you look at guys like Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, even maybe Macho Man's a Grand Slam I don't know. I don't think so. But when you look at the guys that aren't Grand Slam champions, you have to realize that WWE put a lot of stock in their Shield trio to be the future of WWE. Now, granted, a lot of people look at Dean Ambrose and they say Ambrose is just, the floundering member of the Shield, right? He's the guy that, never lived up to his expectations, never lived up to his potential. He's the guy that if they lost him, it would mean nothing. You're absolutely dead wrong. Losing Ambrose is a really, really big deal. And it's a big deal for a couple reasons. And we're going to dive into all of them. But before we do that, we ask you to please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We've got some great things going on here, and we want you to be a part of them. So, Dave, what are your initial thoughts and reactions on the news of Dean Ambrose?
Hey, buddy, I was surprised as shit. I wasn't expecting that shit.
No, not at all.
It did take me by surprise what happened at the Rumble.
With
him being kicked out and all this shit. But I don't know. Was he eliminated by Nia Jax?
Aleister Black, clean kick right out of the ring.
Yeah, but clean to an NXT dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which that was 100% surprising to me too. I don't think an NXT guy, even though Aleister Black is amazing, I don't think a guy from NXT takes Dean Ambrose out of the ring on any normal circumstance.
Yeah. So it was like, whoa, what happened there? And then the next day, right?
It was Monday Night Raw. Ambrose comes out, so we'll give a little bit of the backstory. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Dean Ambrose. But on Monday Night Raw, essentially what had happened was it was daddy and son standing in the ring, Rollins and Triple H having their I'm proud of you, I never needed you type of moment back and forth. And all of a sudden you hear the sirens, you hear the remade Dean Ambrose music. He marches on down to the ring and cuts one of his best promos that he's cut in the past 2 or 3 years. Probably since his initial days of the Shield, where he essentially asked Triple H if, this was really good, if he needed permission from Vince in the back or his father-in-law to go make a match. It was a great promo. It was a great moment. The gist of the whole promo was, when it counts, Seth has never beaten Dean. That in any big match, any big situation, Seth has never beaten Dean. So what do we get? We get a Seth Rollins win in a squash, right? The match ends. Ambrose, we cut to commercial. We come back. Ambrose is sitting in the ring on a steel folding chair. And I want to get to something on that in a little bit too. But Ambrose is sitting in the middle of the ring on a steel folding chair asking to address the WWE Universe. And the crowd's booing him, and he goes, listen, guys, seriously, this is serious. Just stop acting like jerks for a minute. Hit Nia Jax's theme music. Nia Jax then comes down to the ring, stands toe-to-toe with Ambrose, throw Ambrose out of the ring, to which, on a WWE.com exclusive, Dean Ambrose came out and said that it was an accident. Nia tripped into him. Pretty funny. But anyway, So that's what happened on Monday Night Raw. You could tell that there was something to the whole I've got something to get off my chest angle, but they never really dived deep into what that angle was. And then the very next day on WWE.com, we get a notice, and this was really weird because we'll get into that too, but we get a notice that Dean Ambrose has decided not to renew his contract come April. He will stay with the company through WrestleMania, and then his contract will be over. The weird part is, if you've ever seen a WWE release notice, it's we wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors. This says we're very grateful for everything that Dean Ambrose has given to, or Mr. Good has given to the company. I'll put the tweet up. We're grateful for everything that Mr. Good has given to the company, and we hope that he'll return in the future. I mean, there's a lot there, man. There's a lot to think about in that small section right there. Just first off, I've never seen... So part of me wants to genuinely believe that Ambrose is creatively frustrated, as all of the news outlets are reporting, and that's why he wants to leave WWE. I mean, who could fucking blame him? Their creative sucks. I'd want to leave too. And they haven't treated his character right, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I don't blame him for wanting to leave. That said, though...
No, I don't blame him.
That said, though...
I don't blame him.
You don't think it's awkward or weird that WWE would release a statement on it 4 months early?
I don't know. A part of me wants to think it's a work.
I think it's a work.
There's a possibility that it could be true.
See, I want to say I'm 50-50 on the subject. Or maybe 60-40 with him leaving. And the reason I think it's a work is I saw this story about 7 months ago, 8 months ago, maybe a little bit longer now. Kevin Owens loses a match in the middle of the ring. Kevin Owens quits. Kevin Owens leaves. Goes away. His pro wrestling tees store reopens. He changes his name back to Steen on Twitter. And then he shows up like a month later and is back to just being Kevin Owens. So I almost feel like WWE is so predictable that this would almost be a predictable thing that they were trying to accomplish with, you know, it's almost as if they're hearing the rumors too that all of their talent's leaving for AEW, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're hearing these rumors too. What would be the best way to get the crowd behind Ambrose again? Because this gimmick shit that he had wasn't working. This whole... the word he used is he's not the words that have been coming out is he's not a fan of all this hokey shit. And I mean, literally, they've had him stabbed in the ass with a needle. They've had him wear a Bane mask and come out with Riot Squad gear. It's been corny what they've done with him. And it's a shame because he had one of the best heel turns in flipping on Seth the night Roman Reigns got leukemia. And they wasted that. So part of me feels like maybe WWE here is utilizing the opportunity to create a superstar again, or rehash Ambrose by getting the crowd behind him for his support with their support over his frustration with creative.
The thing is that a character like Dean Ambrose is almost similar to a character like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah,
you couldn't hold or limit Stone Cold Steve Austin to anything because it wouldn't have, his character wouldn't have been what it was.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when he's basically Jon Moxley in Dean Ambrose.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He wants to let that bad boy out of control, do whatever the fuck I want, Stone Cold type of shit. But it's not working out.
Well, and so let's say he does stay with WWE, and then we're going to address what happens if he goes elsewhere. But let's say he does stay with WWE. What does that mean for him? Well, that would mean that there'd be some sort of swerve, right? He would come back. The crowd would be excited that he was still here because everyone thought he was leaving. They let him come back as an anti-establishment tweener, which is what he always should have been, that is no longer going against Seth, is no longer going against any of the faces on the roster, but is really just going against WWE for the way that they've handled and treated him over the past couple of years. Look, if you look at Dean Ambrose's WWE career, he was the leader of the Shield. Many people forget that when the Shield came up, Dean Ambrose was the clear-cut leader. He was the mouthpiece. He was the one with the microphone. Many people forget that Ambrose was due for a push before Rollins and Reigns. He was supposed to have that feud with Foley. So WWE has been invested in the Dean Ambrose character since day one. Day one, they've been invested in Dean Ambrose. He's had his ups and downs, right? He had his time with the Shield. The Shield put on the best matches of that era outside of maybe Punk and Bryan, right? So the Shield's put on the best matches of that era. Then after the Shield, Roman got his push, and God knows Roman got a push. Rollins got a push. Both of them achieved really big highs, while Ambrose kind of tailed behind them. But let it be known that that feud between Ambrose and Rollins after Rollins left the Shield was hot. And in 2016, Ambrose was voted Wrestler of the Year, right? It might have been 2016. I'm not sure. But, he had a lot of momentum after winning the triple threat match between him, Roman, and Seth. Remember, he cashed his Money in the Bank in, won the title, and he was champion, and he took that championship with him to SmackDown. There's been a single moment that actually crushed Dean Ambrose's career in WWE, and it's funny you said Stone Cold Steve Austin, because that moment is the Stone Cold podcast. Ambrose was champion, and basically Austin did something he probably should have done behind closed doors and not in front of a national audience. He accused Ambrose of being lazy. He accused Ambrose of resting on his laurels, I believe the term he used was. He accused Ambrose of, not pushing limits or boundaries, and basically just being comfortable and settling down, right? Maybe some of that's true, but you don't say that on a national audience, because then the audience all of a sudden turned on Ambrose and they took the title off of him, right? So if I had to look at one moment in Dean Ambrose's career that turned people away from Dean Ambrose, it's that podcast.
Yeah, that didn't help him at all.
No, that did not help.
Stone Cold picked his ass.
It was bad, man. It was bad. So that gets you to here, right? He gets injured. After being WWE's workhorse, no wrestler on the WWE roster has wrestled more matches over the past 10 years than Dean Ambrose. That's a fact. Year after year, Ambrose is the Lou Gehrig of WWE. Ambrose is the Cal Ripken Jr. Ambrose is the Iron Man, right? So when WWE says we thank Dean Ambrose for all he's given us, they're thanking him for showing up for every house show when someone was injured. They're thanking him for, on a drop of a dime, coming on his day off and showing up to wrestle a match. Because Ambrose legitimately loves the industry. Ambrose loved the company. He was a company man. And for this to happen, things must have gone really sour in his mind. I mean, remember, this is the company that still employs his wife, too. So, at the end of the day, when we're looking at the Dean Ambrose and WWE situation, it could be a work due to the tightness of the company, due to understanding the frustration. But why is Kenny Omega signing with AEW outside the fact that it's just his boys, right? Outside the fact that it's his boys, what's the one main reason he doesn't want to go to WWE?
His character's not going to work there.
Well, they would stifle his creative freedom, right?
Yeah.
So, in flipping the situation on its head, if Dean Ambrose, now I'm going to change his name, if Jon Moxley goes to AEW, what does that give him?
More competition, better opposition.
It gives them the creative. It gives him the creative freedom that he needs to freshen himself up, bet on himself. It's not about money. WWE threw a shitload of money of him for stay, and I promise you that Tony Khan will match every single dollar, if not give him more than Vince McMahon offered him. Tony Khan is clamoring for a WWE superstar to come over there and jump ship like the old days of WWE and WCW. Ambrose is a name that if he comes over even as Jon Moxley, can I be honest? I love Chris Jericho. Ambrose has better name value than Jericho right now.
Yeah.
Jericho's been on TV 2 or 3 times on WWE programming on a national scale, or maybe a handful of times over the past 4 or 5 years. Dean Ambrose has been on TV every single week. Yes, his name will be different, but people will recognize his face, right? So, I mean, from a win standpoint, the value of Dean Ambrose to AEW is exponential. Also, AEW is going to be getting another legitimate upper carder. AEW will be getting someone that can battle Kenny Omega in a really insane style of match.
That'd be great. I would love to see that match.
They're going to get someone that can battle Omega. They're going to get someone that can battle Cody. He's a fresh face that hasn't been on the Ring of Honor and indie scene to wrestle these guys, that people will love to see these matches. It'll put dream matches together. Another little fun fact. Dean Ambrose lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, which happens to be the site of Double or Nothing. With an April 1st expiration on his contract, Ambrose could show up to Double or Nothing and be part of AEW's first pay-per-view. All the pieces come together, man, for Jon Moxley to be an amazing part of AEW. This is a guy who almost lost his life a year ago, right? He got MRSA. No secret to everybody else, he got MRSA. He almost died. When you almost die, right? I was hit by a car. Not saying that your life flashes before your eyes. You start to look at what's important to you. Now, I was 14 at the time, so my values obviously have changed a lot since when I got hit by a car. But you start to look at what's important to you in life, and if he's making a decision to jump from WWE, I bet you it's, do I want to be a company man? Sure, I'm going to be rich, but I'm not going to be happy, right? Or, at the end of the day, do I want my creative freedom? Do I want to be remembered as Jon Moxley, the unbelievable talent that wasn't limited to 5 moves in the ring, wasn't limited by his moveset to not have blood in matches and things like that, which are huge for the Moxley character? Not be limited
and those type of matches are the matches that need to be huge for Dean Ambrose. That's the thing. Like, there's a lot of simple things that his character needs, but that WWE isn't doing.
Yep. And look at the guys he could put those matches on with at AEW. You've got Chris Jericho, who's been putting on some amazing no disqualification matches in New Japan. You've got Kenny Omega, he's more of a technical wrestler, but I still think that would be a good match. You've got Pentagon, who's an absolute crazy bastard. You've got, Joey Janela is the master of the death match. So you've got all these great wrestlers that fit into Ambrose's style, and I think would really be some amazing things to watch.
That show would be dope to see a death match between Joey Janela and Ambrose.
And look, Ambrose can even...
Now that you say that, yo.
And there's so many cool things they could do. They could take Ambrose and they could have him grab 2 young kids and literally groom them underneath him and make a stable. And the 2 kids can grow from having Ambrose. Having Ambrose in the company does so much for them because it literally lends credibility. They're not going to be able to get right now too many guys directly from WWE. It's just not going to happen. WWE's locking their contracts. Ever since this Ambrose shit happened, WWE is paranoid as hell. They are locking everybody into 5-year deals. They want everybody to sign a 5-year contract and double the money they're making right now. I've never seen anything like this. I'm being real.
It's crazy, though, because you know why WWE is so scared? Because of that shit that's going to start with Fox, too.
What do you mean?
That deal that they got with Fox.
That deal is going to start with Fox, and their ratings are at an all-time low, and now they're losing stars. It's gonna force them to change, and we're gonna do some digging on that a little bit later tonight in another episode. But I think what it really comes down to is, Dave. Before I go into that, let me ask you your thoughts on the matter. is Dean Ambrose showing up at Double or Nothing?
I would like to, bro. It's like a 60-40 situation for me.
You're staying at 60-40 too?
Yeah, because I think it's still a work.
I agree with you. I think there's definitely a possibility that it's a work. I think he does go to AEW. I think Jon Moxley will be a part of All Elite Wrestling. We can call it now. I think it does amazing things for them. At that point, it just becomes what happens next. You're looking at a ripple effect, folks. I called it 2 weeks ago when I started to hear the news of the Revival and Mike and Maria and all these other people that were talking about asking for the releases. You're about to watch the great WWE Exodus. You have if Ambrose goes, you have 4. You have Cody, Neville, Jericho, and Ambrose potentially all standing together with AEW. That's huge.
Yes, that's huge, bro.
That is huge. And then if you get another 1 or 2, WWE is going to get a run for their money. They really are. Everybody who
I really hope that they're going to be like a traveling company.
They will be. It's going to take time. I
know they're going to be down here. I'm going to go out there a lot to go see that shit. Fuck that.
I'm gonna make something very clear. Something I've been listening to a lot in internet banter that I just want to address. To all of you out there that are saying WWE will move on without Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose sucks. Yes. WWE will move on without Dean Ambrose. No, Dean Ambrose does not, will not, has never sucked. Stop being such. Stop taking everything that they give you and spoon feeding it. Just because a character is not working within an environment doesn't mean that the character won't work. You move Jon Moxley into AEW in an environment that gives him the creative freedom to do the things that he wants to do. I promise you, the guy's going to flourish. And I also want to note that to anyone that thinks that this is just about Dean Ambrose, you're absolutely wrong. That every single person in the locker room is saying to themselves, oh shit, Ambrose? Well, if he's leaving, then I could leave too. Or if he's leaving, it changes the game, right? This is game changing. This is more.
That's true.
This is more than an indie guy signing with AEW. This is more than a former WWE superstar like Jack Swagger, who's been sitting on his ass signing with. He's fighting with Bellator, but signing with AEW. That literally outside of you telling me Seth Rollins or AJ Styles signed, right? This is monumental. And that's it, folks. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the whole Dean Ambrose situation. We're sorry that it took us a little bit longer to get some videos up this time, but we promise we'll have a lot more coming soon. But again, love to hear your thoughts in the comment below. Ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications. We'll talk to you guys next time. Y'all have a great night.